that are into the gematria and study every word that Trump says. And what he's trying to tell us is really not what he's telling us, where he sometimes gets the grammar wrong, or the words are like, what the hell is kofifi or whatever, you know what I mean? And they look it up and it means something completely different. Just like, it's fascinating to watch this man trying to communicate with us. And we have to go to some gematria calculator to find out what it is he's really saying.
Well, it really taps into this algorithms of consciousness 351, the English, all letters A through Z add up to 351. So 351 is a really powerful gematria number. But every single number is essentially like a frequency.
Good afternoon or good evening. I'm not even sure what it is. It's almost good evening here. It's 17 minutes after 4 here in Costa Rica. And we got Justin Carpenter. Who is Justin Carpenter? He happens to work with Negative 48. But before we get there, we're going to make a few announcements, okay? Right down below, hit the pause button, go to our Rumble channel and join our Rumble channel. We got our second strike today, folks. Unfortunately, it is what it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We got a backup channel, and we got Rumble, and we got Telegram. Doesn't matter. We're still going to come out. But what's going to happen here in the next couple of days as we get through this thing is we're going to go very slowly with our main channel, because it's got almost 34,000 subs. I don't want to kill all that hard work. So we're going to go very slow, and we're going to wait until October 15th, which is 2 months from today, and we're going to be strike free. So we'll have a fresh, clean channel at that point. Also down below, don't forget to subscribe, unsubscribe. You're going to be on our secondary channel, and you're going to be on our Rumble channel. Subscribe, unsubscribe. Let's keep the algorithms dazed and confused in case the good guys do come back. That will be great. This way we can, get back to freedom of speech and back to the way things used to be. Down below, also, don't forget, we have our Telegram group for all you people that understand we're making a transition. We're going into the quantum financial system, the biggest ever. Not the smallest, the biggest. We're never going back to the old system because they're going to burn it down. There's nothing to go back to. Okay. Also, we got swag. We got beautiful swag. Don't forget to support us. We just go to qfs1776.shop, and that will take you directly to Mirko is doing a great job. He's hiring a lot of great administrators, committed people, finally, some people with loyalty, respect, and integrity. Good job, Mirko. Shout out to you, buddy. I wish I could clone this guy like 19 times, I swear. But he's fabulous. Also, don't forget to share us on your social media. Justin, welcome. I want to talk to you about what did you think overall on the interview that we did with Negative 48. I thought that was pretty explosive stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to be a part of and to hear him going. But this is kind of what we've gotten used to, of just getting to spend time with this beautiful man, and his discovery of kind of his role within this, finding out this divinely led path has led him to this space, and sharing the tools that he's gathered along the way, and just getting into the space of seeking the truth no matter where it lies. And so I've always been very attracted to people who are that gung-ho, because I'm the same sort of way. I want to get to the truth no matter what it is. I'm not beholden to anything else. So it was an amazing show to hear that conversation and to sort of get that message out there, just to continue this conversation. We might not have all come from the same place, and the avenues we choose can be different, but we're all going to the same place. All these paths are diverging to the truth, to this one true story, this one space that we're all aiming for, and that's God and his infinite wisdom in the space that we all came from. We're going back.
Absolutely. And what capacity do you work with Negative 48? Are you like his manager? Are you his producer? Are you related to him?
No, not by blood or anything. It's really he is my soul brother. He's very much a close friend. I've gotten to know him very well since starting to spend time in Dallas about 8 months ago, and that's where I first met him. Kind of when he called a bunch of people there, and I just so happened to be passing through, and I had started listening to him a couple months before that. So I was like, well, let's go check it out, see what's up. And one thing after another, everything has been divinely planned from that space, and it has gotten to that point. But prior to that, I had just spent 6 months with Charlie Freak. So I've really down in Mexico, and I'm actually wearing one of their shirts right here. So I've really gotten to know two of these just badass people within the truth community. And I've gotten to know them personally, physically, up close in person, to know that, because you can get to know people online to a degree, but until you spend time with somebody, until you live with them, basically, you don't know them. And I've been really lucky to get to know both of these individuals really well and know that they're both righteous, good-hearted people who are doing their absolute best. And so it's amazing to get to do that and to get to spend time with. So no, not in any official capacity. It's just we align in a lot of ways, and wherever I can help him, I certainly will, and he does the same for me. So it's a good relationship in that regard.
Cool. Well, I got to tell you that the fact that he said that Trump was never president is still over my head, and some people were saying that that the president, technically speaking, in quotation marks, would still be President Kennedy. Is that correct, or is that because they saying, well, Trump was like the president of a corporation, he wasn't president of a country? Correct?
Right. Yes. And so it really depends on where you draw the line on all of these things, because they've done so many things illegally and so many things outside of God's laws and how it was intended to be for so long, that it really, when we boil it down, we can pick apart the nuances on who's who and what's position. But the whole corporation was a big phony fraud. If you're going from the corporation's history, the last president was JFK before they usurped even that nonsense of a system and it's distorted it. So from the corporation's perspective, it would be JFK. But then you go back to the corporation being null and void, and who would our president be? It really, you can pick it apart for days and days. Ultimately, it comes down to what Trump said in his speech, which is how you know that he might have been president for about a minute and a half, but when he gave power over to the military, he gave power back to the people, but through the military, it's going to enact that. So when he had that speech and about a minute and a half in, he said, I'm giving power back to you, the people. And that's when the military came behind him in the video. They stood behind him and they turned around. And that was the symbolic gesture of, at this point, complete authority was handed over to the military to do exactly what they needed to do. So it really depends on where you want to draw the line. It's little nuances here and there, but I would say yes, by the corporate history, JFK would still be the president, because there was never, that wasn't a rightful turnover by any degree. That was a usurpation, completely, in that regard.
That's a great point, Justin. But the reality is, I think, he's been, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm speaking more to your audience. I'm sure you have some kind of an audience out there on Telegram. And I don't know, do you have a YouTube channel as well?
I used to, until I got taken down. I had about 13,000 subscribers for the big one. And then I got another one and got a few thousand before that one got taken down too. So
yeah, I'm one of those weeble wobbles. I'm one of those old, old school guys, one of the last Mohicans. I weeble wobble, but I don't fall down. I'll just keep coming and coming and coming, I'll just keep charging forward. You give me lemons, I'll make you the best lemonade in the world. That's just the way I roll.
And that's what the cabal hates about people like us, because we are resilient. Once we recognize that this is the right thing to do, and it doesn't matter what comes in my way, I'm going to do it. They hate us because these are the things that pop up that they have to kill off. This is the Christ energy within. He wasn't a pushover. He wasn't somebody who just came in and was all hunky dory, all love and light, like the church would like to portray it. No, he came to get shit done, and he did. And so we have to embody that same energy and say, you know what, this isn't right, and I have to do something about it. And until it's right, I can't stop. So that's that resilience that we all have.
I tend to believe you're right, because I definitely believe that I'm under some kind of divine guidance, intervention, whatever you want to call it, because this is not like me. I'm very spiritual, always been very spiritual. And I'm always the kind of guy, even though there was a point in my life where I was definitely an atheist for a long time. And I wouldn't say I'm religious, because I think religion as a whole, organized religion, is just a bunch of hogwash. It's just a place, like George Carlin used to say, a place where you can go and compare clothing and what kind of car you drive, and show off your new shoes or what have you. But it's, if you operate under a certain kind of laws, where if I'm about to do something to you, and I say, you know what, before I do this to Justin, what I want to do to Justin, what I'm about to do to him, if he was to do it to me, if the answer is no, don't move forward. It's just that simple. And if they could, everybody could live just by that one rule, just that one rule, man, what an incredible world this would be, right? And
Truly, I
it's
mean,
simple.
yeah, very simple. God's laws are not complicated, and they are very simple, and we all know them inherently. So it doesn't require any book or any law written in any, of course there are nuances and there's situations where of course you might have to pick things apart and see what went down. And that's what the court of law should be. But overall, everyone should have this firm understanding, this is right and this is wrong. And anything that crosses that dominion needs to be addressed. And until we can get back to that space where people are taking their own sovereignty, really taking it as this truly understanding that I am a child of God. So everything, as long as I'm acting righteously, it is going to be divinely led. That's just how the nature of this works. It is a benevolent creation, and it's built for us. It's built to make sure that we are magnified as much as possible. Whereas the cabal society, all they've constructed is designed to limit that. It's designed to put this box, package us in this particular way so that we're a good slave and we only last a certain amount of time and we die slowly, and they rake every ounce of us out of us until we do.
The reality is that, they keep us sick to the point where they send you to the grave completely destitute, and they got this whole thing down to a science. Now people are waking up saying, wait a minute, maybe people like Justin, people like Mel are right. And they're starting to, sing our song, which is nice to see for a change, because I've been at this for 30 years and I was getting tired. But now that I see that the people are starting to wake up and starting to join us, it's like somebody put some new life into me. You know what I mean? And it's nice. It's nice for change. But do you by any chance own any XRP?
Yes, just a little bit. I tend to lean towards XLM myself, just because I like silver a little better than gold, and so I like the idea of silver back better than gold back. But I have a little bit of both. I think it's a nice thing to put into, and you can't really get into it at a much better time than now. So I always tell people, physical gold and silver is my top preference. Always will be, all hands down, no matter what. But if you don't have enough space or you don't want to lug around extra metals, then hey, yeah, look into the stellar network, because this is the system that we're moving to, undeniably. This is the framework. This is the framework of what we're going to. So, we might at the very least just learn about it. At the very least, just get familiar with it so that you're more prepared to set yourself up for betterment in the future.
My wife is very smart. She owns a lot of both, a lot. We've been accumulating for, 6.5 years, and we've been just accumulating. We don't trade. We just buy it, put it on the wallets, on the hardware wallets, and we hold, and we just keep buying and keep buying. We try to stay in that positive cash flow. So we constantly are offering great business opportunities. Guys, down below this terahertz, I'm going to leave the link up here when this video is done. You might want to watch the testimonial of this chiropractor who's using it on her patients. Riveting. I got 5 people, Justin, taking orders. They can't keep up with the demand. They got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails in the last 48 hours. I have a tendency to do that, and we're moving towards a quantum healing. We're moving towards a quantum financial system. Everything is going to be quantum. Quantum travel is coming. We're not going to be in things that mimic birds, or an extension of the Wright brothers. I mean, this is ridiculous. We're still driving cars on air-filled tires. Are you kidding me? We should have been traveling amongst the stars. We're 1,000 years behind where we should be right now.
Yeah, well, and just looking at the combustion engine itself, I mean, it's just a ridiculous piece of technology that we've used for over 100 years now, of moderating an explosion and capturing the force used from it. I mean, it's just very archaic. It's useless.
It is unbelievable. I don't care if it's a Lamborghini, I really don't. It's still a combustion engine. It's old shit. It should have been gone a long time ago. Yeah, it's got a nice shape. Yeah, it attracts a lot of girls. They're probably the wrong kind of girls, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm really hot on XRP, XLM, XDC, the quantum financial system, Jasara, Nasara, the lobster, all of it. The lobster, I'm going to put the disclosure out there, as I constantly do, but people still are bent on calling me a scam artist. 98% is still scams. Yes, Protocol 19 was signed into law, but it's not going to be implemented for another 2 months, 3 months for sure. Protocol 20 comes, there's not going to be no more of the wild, wild west. All those assets are going to be on there are going to be absolutely, you'd be crazy not to invest and follow people like Quantum Brownie and Emily and Tim and all these guys out there that understand what this is. So the reality is, people like to, when they came out with the car, Justin, the people that were in the business of raising horses and donkeys, they said, are you crazy? You don't need a car. We got donkeys. We got horses. We don't need that, right? Then everybody went to the Model T Ford, and then, cars obviously progressively evolved into what they are today. Then you fast forward, in the late 80s, whatever, we got something called the internet. My friend Frank put a little ad in America Today, whatever, one of those newspapers, said, I'm an internet consultant. People still go, what are you, stupid? Internet? Nobody needs the internet. You got, letterheads and a beeper and a business card. That's all you need. Now, today, you can't do business without a website, can you? You know anybody who's in business that doesn't have a website? I don't. Okay. Well. They're doing the same thing. They're doing the same thing to the lobster. You notice why I chose this color? Because it's the lobster color. You notice the color of my hat and my lobster. We're all about the lobster. Okay. And it's going to change a lot of people's lives for the price of a latte. Okay. Or a coffee at Starbucks that costs, $9.82. You can change your life because you know the story. You know how the story goes. And my audience knows the story about Trump traveling around the world, throwing the files down on the table, etc. Right?
That was Charlie's video, Takedown of the Cabal from A to Z, that really kind of encapsulated that. And we're actually, it's a great package deal to show anyone who has any doubts about what's going on here, because this is truly an all-encompassing plan at every level. And there might be some aspects where I don't understand what's going on because I can't see from where I am, but I know that these are good people. I know that they're doing it for the right reasons, and I know that righteousness is being restored, which means the wealth of the wicked is saved up for the righteous. It's coming back to us. All that shit that they stole from us is coming back, and this is
with
just
interest.
The way for that. Yes,
with interest and penalties.
Absolutely. Yes.
And a price to pay, because these are treasonous crimes of the tallest order. And there's only one way to pay for that. Off with the heads.
Everyone will get their righteous reward based on what they've done, all the way up to, like Trump said in his last rally, he talked about everyone's going to be fired at the very least. So that's going to be the least of people's worries, is like, you might get fired from your job based on what you did, but depending on the level of severity and what you did, it's all the way up to execution. That's
am I crazy? Am I crazy, Justin, to think that Q, the 17th letter in the alphabet, and the quantum financial system, and XRP, and XLM, and XDC, JASARA and ASARA, the low-lying satellites, Lagarde going down to Antarctica with Garlinghouse and David Schwartz, aka Satoshi Nakamoto. Am I crazy that all this stuff connects? Am I crazy that the guys who built Spark Flare token, this will come out, folks? I promise you, this will come out. Okay, the people who built Spark token are the same people who took that ship in the middle of the Suez Canal and drew a penis with it and then beached the freaking thing, telling the guys on board, you have no power. I mean, that is some serious power. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on in the sense that it's all connected, because that's how God works. And that's how we work too. There's two sides of this, right? You can't serve two masters. That's what he told us. So if you're not serving God, you're inevitably serving the other. Now, what does the other do? It does everything to try and divide. It does everything to try and separate, keep us in this space where we're disconnected. We don't know anything. We're not in touch with our wealth. We can't even work and be rewarded for that work, because they've inserted so many layers of separation. So all that's being restored. I mean, Q is you. Q is just this story of all stories, where it's us are realizing who we truly are, which is that we're children of God, here to do a very specific purpose, to experience this physical creation, but learn and grow with it, but expand the whole time. So we're learning and growing in ourselves and rising. This is all about the Kundalini rising, the chakra rising, climbing Jacob's ladder, the 33 rungs. It's all about this process. And when we're distracted away from it by all this other nonsense, then we make better slaves. When we realize that this is what we're here to do, then we're uplifted. We're magnified to the umpteenth degree. And that's what they hate. They cannot
Right.
stand when we feel uplifted. So all of those
Exactly.
tools you mentioned are just bringing us back to this realization of who we
Right.
are and why we're here.
What is the word Trump? The word Trump. You can freeze frame because it goes real fast. It's like letter moves so fast, but you got to freeze frame it. I took pictures of it. I got it. I put it in my Telegram group many times. I still got it saved. I'll put it out there again. What is the 17th letter doing in a commercial for Flair? What is the word Trump doing in the commercial for Flair? Can somebody please explain it to me? You know what I mean? Let's talk a little bit about negative 48. You hang out with him face to face, you have lunch with him, you have dinner with him, you hang out with him. How long have you known him? What is it like to hang out with negative 48? Please paint the picture for us.
Sure. Well, so I've known Michael since just before 11/2, which was the time where we all came to Dallas initially, to because he was on the hunt for Q. That's what has been his mission. He's been on the
The
hunt for Q.
17th letter. Let's call it the 17th letter because
He's
that's
been
a
on.
sensitive letter. They
Sure.
think
He's
they own
been.
that letter. Can you imagine?
I know it's ridiculous, but so he's on the hunt for the 17th letter and seeing where that led him. And so he told everyone, I'm going to Dallas, but anyone's welcome to come along. And so a lot of us showed up, and that was back in November. So it's been until now that I've spent a lot of time with him. I've gotten to know him. We've gone to just about every rally this year, every Trump rally. We spent a lot of time in Dallas together. And he is just as he is online. He's very dedicated to the gematria. He's very dedicated to this uncovering the story, but he's full of jokes and laughter all the way through. So it's this wonderful experience of having a lot of fun with a guy who genuinely is such a good-hearted man and wants to do the right thing. And so every aspect that he does is centered around that. So it's always a lot of fun. And my favorite thing about him is when he's got that spark of passion, when he's truly telling one of those stories where he's on a roll. If you go along with that ride, it's one of the most fun experiences. And anyone who's listened to him for any length of time can tell you that, because when he's on a roll, it's something special. He's really tapped in to this story of all stories, because we all know what happens. We all know how it develops. The details along the way are kind of hard to figure out at times, but we have fun doing so. And so he's figuring this out in the way that he knows is best, and we're all figuring out in the way that we know is best. And so we're comparing notes and sharing that experience, and it's turned out to be a really wonderful thing, because we're all genuinely on the same path. And so you had us prior to this where people were stepping out and starting to seek the truth, but they were ostracized and beaten down and kicked out by the rest of society. So you've got all these people who have been on that similar path, as we can all experience. When we start speaking the truth, people label us as crazy. So we all share that, and that allows this openness to kind of come together, so we can find that space within and realize that we're all here for the same reason. We're all here for the same thing. So
Yeah.
what's the problem here? Oh, there's one major problem, and we have to address it. We've got a bunch of parasites that have taken hold, and we have to cut them off. We have to get rid of them.
Well, I tell you, it's encouraging to see how many people are actually rising up to the occasion. We need more and more. That's why I just keep beating the drum. I've been beating this drum for 30 years, man. I'm relentless. But what is it like to hang out with him? Does he wake up like, is he in a good mood? Does he wake up, is he in a bad mood? Is he a jokester? Is he a moody guy where he's like a roller coaster? 1 minute he's up, the next minute he's down?
No, he's pretty even keel. He's like any other guy. He has moments. We all have moments, but for the most part, he's just that he's a wonderful man. He's a great presence to be around. We stay up pretty late, so he'll sleep in pretty late. But I'm always amazed at how little sleep he needs. We'll stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning talking about whatever, and then he'll be up 10 o'clock the next day, ready to rock and roll and do it all over again. And some nights he doesn't even sleep. And I liken it to when someone's truly on their path, when they're feeling that divine flow, they are energized by something other than what we normally fuel ourselves with. That is that divine source of energy that can fuel and really can bypass all sorts of needs for sleep or food or any of that. So he'll get into that space sometimes, and it's hard to keep up at times, but it's a wonderful thing to do. And I really enjoy him. I think he's fantastic. He's he's very polarizing, and that's something that we share. Him and I share, because I'm very polarizing too. I can say things that some people might disagree with or whatever else, and I have no problem with people disagreeing with me. But sometimes, and Michael shares this too. Sometimes when people disagree with Michael, they view it as a personal attack against them, and they get angry at him. And I share that same thing. Sometimes people get angry at me for that sort of thing. So I appreciate that bravado that he has, and that consistency, that conviction that he speaks with, because then he doesn't speak on things that he's not sure about. He doesn't talk about things where he's just like, whatever. He's very consistent, and I do appreciate that.
Well, I follow a few people. When I say few, you can count them on hands, actually three, that are into the gematria and study every word that Trump says. And what he's trying to tell us is really not what he's telling us, where he sometimes gets the grammar wrong, or the words are like, what the hell is kofifi or whatever, you know what I mean? And they look it up and it means something completely different. Just that it's fascinating to watch this man trying to communicate with us. And we have to go to some gematria calculator to find out what it is he's really saying.
Well, it really taps into this algorithms of consciousness 351. The English, all letters A through Z add up to 351. So 351 is a really powerful gematria number. But every single number is essentially like a frequency, right? Because all we are is energy, frequency, vibration. So when in the beginning was the word. So when we're speaking words, we're actually emitting frequency. When we're doing it in such a way that it's actually casting a powerful spell every time. Every word spoken, it's a powerful spell. And so if we're unconscious with our words, then we can be casting dark magic spells and not even realize what we're doing. Whereas if we're conscious with it, we're always in that space of speaking in alignment with God, and we're always casting that white magic. So when Trump is speaking, I don't think that he's actually calculating every single word that he's speaking, but he's so tapped into the divine consciousness that every word that he is speaking is aligned with the story. And so you can decode and pick it apart and see that he's actually saying a whole lot more than he's communicating.
Right.
But and I think there are times where he's intentional with that, and there are times where he's unintentional with that, but it doesn't matter, because either time he's still tapped into the same source. So the same thing is still going to come across. So it makes it a really interesting tool to utilize to pick apart what people are saying, because you can see, okay, what are the common trends that are emerging when this person speaks, or this particular thing happened? What are the trends that are occurring? What numbers are showing up the most often, to kind of sort of give an idea? Because when you study the numbers enough, you start to pick up on what these different frequencies allude to. And they have so many consistencies, just like the 17th letter said. At what point is it mathematically impossible? At what point are the coincidences mathematically possible, to where there's no other explanation other than intelligent design, other than the fact that there is some creator source that's guiding this whole thing? And it just makes it amazing, because you can scientifically prove the existence of God. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. So what do you guys do for fun? I mean, right now you're just traveling around the countries. I know he went to Dallas, and they had that whole skit that they did on Vice, and it was all designed to discredit him, to make him look like a fool, like a tinfoil hat, whatever. I watched it about 30 minutes before you guys came on. Were you in that room, by the way, when we did that? Yeah, you were. Okay, I thought I heard your voice.
Yeah.
You were probably the technical guy trying to put it all together, right?
Yep,
Okay.
I was.
Okay. How many people were in that room that day? Do you know approximately?
I think there were about 40. It was less, because usually during the evenings more people will come. So I think there are about 40 people in there at that point, maybe 30 or so. And then people usually, so we, at least the trend that has been, when we're in Dallas, we usually rent a meeting space so that people can, and this is all just donations from people, usually from people within the group, really generous people who are like, whatever, I have money and I want to keep this thing going. So they'll offer to pay for the room and give us a space to meet. And so we'll do that, and there's no real schedule or rhyme or reason. Each day is just kind of a new adventure. We've got a meeting space, so we always go there and we talk about whatever. And usually Michael's doing a presentation, but sometimes different people will. Like sometimes I'll speak on different things, and sometimes other people will get up and have a little gematria presentation, or I'll add commentary to different things or whatever else. But it's always a nice experience, because it's very raw and real. So as we're all going through this, kind of like realizing that whole world of lies was keeping us rooted in this experience. It's the reason that we're going through this pain, is because we were so attached to this world. We were unwilling to let it go. We were unwilling to surrender to him and his will. So as we're all meeting and experiencing this sort of way, everyone's kind of learning their own space to let go. to let go of whatever aspect that they're holding on to, not to be irresponsible by any means. And people do get confused about that. Don't be irresponsible, but don't let the weight of that kind of stuff weigh you down. If you have issues with, like, if you don't want to have your house and you want to sell, then sell your house. If the house is causing you a lot of trouble, get rid of the house, and then you don't have that anymore. Just whatever the space may be, find it where it's like, I've crafted this experience how I want to, not based on how society has conditioned me to experience it. So we're all going through that transitional stage within that room. And so it brings up a whole lot of challenges, people going through emotional whatevers. And I'm usually oriented around the more interpersonal stuff. So people look to me as a listening ear of someone who can help guide these kind of spaces. And that's where I find a lot of joy, because I truly do see the highest expression of every individual. I love seeing the light that shines within people and then helping guide them to that space, but they have to want it. You can't make anybody see the light that they are, but I see it. And so I love helping people find it within themselves, just holding the mirror up and saying, look how beautiful you are, look how amazing you are, look how incredible you are, and helping people see that. And so within those spaces of challenges, that coming together and being raw and real and true comes up, I've seen so many people transform in such powerful ways just by letting little things go, just by having just a little recalibration here and there. And for that alone, it has made the whole experience of coming to Dallas completely worth it, top to bottom. And I wouldn't dream of doing anything otherwise, because there's nothing like it. There's no other time, at least in my life, where I've come together with a group of people with no inhibitions, no rejection, no rejection of any perspective or idea or anything like that. We get to show up as we are and be true, just as Michael shows up as he is. He is that initial example of showing up as someone who is himself at all times, and you can't change it. Even if you want to change it, you can't change it. So him having that stance and that undeniable confidence in self really does exude and allow all of us to find that space within too, because we're all training to be the best versions of ourselves. Because this next little period, and I like to remind everybody, there's lots of beautiful things coming, but shit's going to get weird. It's going to get wild and crazy, and there's going to be ups and downs, and it's going to be hectic. And people who aren't ready for it, it's going to be far, far worse. So the more that we get ready for it and gear up for it in whatever capacity, spiritually, financially, whatever the case may be, get ready for this, because it's going to be real. And so doing that interpersonal work and having a space and a group of people to work with, it really does allow that to happen a lot more smoothly and quickly. So that's kind of the day-to-day and what we do for fun. I mean, every moment's a lot of fun, whether we're in those meetings or just spending time with each other. Sometimes we've gone to the movie theater all together at times, and like we saw Elvis, and that was a phenomenal movie. And we saw the new Thor movie as well. That was pretty good too. They dropped in that movie, I don't know if you saw it, but they dropped about child trafficking or a time, it was like some illusion of talking about a time where they ate kids, and it was a dark time and we shouldn't go there anymore. And so it was very interesting to have that kind of disclosure dropped in a movie like that. So anyway, that's kind of the fun stuff that we do on a regular basis.
Walk us through that day where you guys were supposed to go to Dallas, and that John Jr. was supposed to be there. What happened or what didn't happen? Can you sort of, make sense of that whole thing for us, if you don't mind?
Well, there's only sense to make of it if you try and put a lot of expectations and things needing to happen a certain way. And that's something that I've never done, nor will ever do. Expectations are the tool of the devil. Anytime we have these expectations that things have to go a certain way or it has to play out this way, we're always going to be disappointed. So there were many people who had high expectations for lots of different days, as we've all experienced. As different days have come along, we set our expectations and they fall in. We all know what that feels like. So from that perspective, it went beautifully, because it allowed people to see how these expectations do play into that. But how it was supposed to go, I mean, I think it went exactly as it needed to. It created this space for all of us to meet and come together for a common goal, build these connections so that we could better prepare ourselves for what's ahead. And if we are going to be aligned with working with these individuals who have been behind the scenes for this long, then what better way to prepare ourselves than to have like a sort of, like however you want to look at it, but a long period of time where we've been able to accumulate these skills in this way. So I think it went perfectly. Now, like I said, it didn't go the same way as some people expected it to go, and but it went.
Well, is it possible? I'm just playing devil's advocate. Is it possible that somebody is infiltrating the 17th letter of the alphabet movement and is putting the information out there and putting it out there in such a way where they sort of fit in? They dress the same, they talk the same, they walk the same, they smell the same, everything's the same, but they're not really part of us. They're part of something else. And they're putting the information out there to make us look like a bunch of cuckoo birds, okay? So that the actual movement itself gets completely shot down as far as a credibility standpoint. Is that a possibility, Justin?
Oh, that's certainly a possibility. And we've seen small examples of people who have tried to infiltrate the movie and claim, or the movement, and claim that they're Q and claim that they're saying this and that, and if they have inside information. Anyone who says they have inside information, like, run the other direction, because you've got people who can talk with people, and if they can say who they're speaking with, and yeah, it can add some credibility. But when it's just a blanket inside sources, that's a bad sign, because as Q always said, no outside counts. But as far as infiltration and subversion and trying to make people look crazy, I think that happens all the time. I think it happens in easy ways where people throw out a clickbait, something on Telegram, and people go, "Oh, that's so crazy. Oh, what if that's true?" And some people believe it to be true, and all sorts of different things. So we do have to be very responsible about being discerning about what kind of things I'm putting out there. What kind of things am I supporting? And that's why it's very important to me to have that time to really get to know people, so that I can know their true intentions. And I wouldn't be prepared to go all in with Michael Brian Prosper, -48, unless I knew him for this long. I wouldn't be prepared to go all in with Charlie Creek unless I knew him for that length of time. But I know they're good people. I know that they don't have any other intentions other than this pursuit of truth. So everything they find, sure, yeah, we can make mistakes and get things wrong here and there, but overall, like the trajectory is 100% as it should be. But I will say this also, that I think there's another aspect that you might not have considered with the news articles and things that have come out about us in general, because as you know, there's been a lot of slanderous and vulgar and disgusting ways that we've been portrayed in these spaces. Now, what if those articles were written by Trump? What if those articles were written by the white hats in order to paint us as these cuckoos, so that when the truth does come out, it's that publicity is already there, and that seed has already been planted? What if that were part of a larger orchestration to kind of set us up as the crazy ones that end up being right about most everything? There's an aspect to this, and there's too many parallels and coincidences between our activity and the things that they spend their time writing about that lead me to believe that that's very much the case. Because I don't think that any news organization would spend nearly as much effort, time, resources, collecting information, writing about us, portraying us everywhere, if we were just a bunch of kooks. Like, they don't spend this much time going to UFO conferences or Bigfoot conferences or anything like that, where they could easily have the same effect. No, they choose to spend it just on us, and they really hone in on the details within that. Why are you telling everybody all those details? That's the kind of potential soft disclosure that they're doing, is they're using us as a tool to get the information out there because it's not ready yet. It's not ready for the big shebang. So you got to just slowly, incrementally do it. So that's just a perspective that I wanted to throw out there, because it's interesting.
Interesting. Justin, who do you think personally is JFK Jr.? Do you know, or do you suspect a specific individual to be that person?
Oh, I think he's played many roles. I mean, I think that's another aspect where people might get a little too carried away with who is JFK Jr. and how many roles he's played. But I think he's played a considerable amount of them, probably in limited experiences for the most part. Like, it's too risky to have someone play that role for that long, potentially. But there's also a lot of uncanny evidence about the guy who was the Secret Service agent, the bald guy, who was always playing with his pinky and all these other sorts of things. Like, that's an interesting one. So I put some weight into that one. There are other ones that people will put up that I'm like, I don't know about that one. I don't see it as well enough to say that this is definitive.
So it's not 107, right?
That role could have been played by JFK Jr. at one point, maybe for a short time, but I don't think that it's him all the time. Nor do I think JFK Jr. played any character that he plays all the time. I think it's like a fill-in, like he'll fill in and play this role for a little bit and then hop out.
Interesting. Do you have any personal contact with 107 at all?
No, I don't. I don't, but I have spoken with people who do. And as Michael said, he was going to try and get you in touch with them. So
I will ask him some questions that are going to set his boots on fire. I promise.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask him some questions that he's going to be like a little bit, okay, who is this guy? Mel. Have you determined, because there's a lot of people also out there that believe that Elvis Presley is still alive. I have a little bit of hard time with that one simply because the guy that they keep sending to me is this preacher in Memphis who's got white hair and he's barely 70. And if Elvis was alive, unless he's got access to a med bed and he looks fantastic, which that could be, it sounds like him, looks like him, but I think this guy could be a businessman. A lot of people use religion to make money, right?
Well, I don't know his intentions. I believe you're referring to Bob Joyce in Arkansas. Is that who you're talking about?
He's a really good looking guy. He's got a white beard, white hair,
yeah.
And they did the computer graphics on him, the voice and everything. I mean, I don't know.
The evidence presented at times is compelling, but I lean towards probably not. That's not Elvis, but I do think Elvis is alive. I don't think that particular man is Elvis, but I do think he's alive. But where people get kind of one aspect that kind of helps to get people to realize is like, I think that man can channel Elvis. And I think just as anyone can channel anybody, I think once you know somebody well enough, once you know like a character well enough, like Elvis, who Elvis was, that's solidified in our consciousness ad infinitum to the end of time. As long as we keep solidifying that character, Elvis Presley, in our minds, that character is somebody that we can tap into. So if you know that character well enough, then you can channel that who that is just as they are. And that, I think, is what's happening here. And Bob Joyce does deny it. He never gives credence to it, but people kind of up and run with things, and people have compared me to different people too. So I get how people fall into that. And I always say, no, like, I'm just a guy. But sometimes when people are convinced of something, there's nothing that you can do to say to them otherwise. I've had people come pull on my beard and make sure I wasn't wearing a mask and stuff like that. So it's like, if people want to believe whatever they want, they will. And so he's probably in this space now is like, whatever, people believe that all you like, but that's not me.
Yeah. JFK Jr., I tend to believe that there's some real strong evidence that he is alive. And there's been some very credible people like David Straight, who I interviewed a few months back, because his videos got like 171,000 hits on my channel. He said, he said, the first question I asked him, I leaned forward into the camera and I said, so is JFK Jr. still alive? And there was like a pause for like 17 seconds. Nobody said something. No, it felt like, it took forever. And then he goes, you're not supposed to ask that question. Anyway, long story short, I went back and I saw some of the videos, and people sent me the videos because I was ballsy enough to even ask him, Yeah. And so truth is that, he's been on top of Mount Rushmore with a helicopter, et cetera. And supposedly Trump Jr. was there. JFK Jr. was there. Trump himself was there. He took a picture on Trump's, on George Washington's head. I understand Trump also got his face lasered because he sees his face being chiseled in on that mountain next to those other presidents at some point down the road. I believe that's going to happen. So there are definitely some anomalies that point to the fact, and the story goes, and you can correct me, that something with Hillary Clinton, that he was going to run for Senate in New York and he was going to win and blah, blah, blah. And And so something happened and she threatened him. So he faked his own death. I don't know. It's really convoluted. Does that have any validity? And then where's he living? Is he living in some like gated compound that's run by the CIA? That's got, Starbucks and I don't know, Jeff Bezos is, Whole Foods, whole paycheck, whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think there's I mean, I wouldn't deny it at all that JFK Jr. is alive, because at least he didn't die in that plane crash. That hands down, that there's so many inconsistencies with that story. That story was just bogus. And there's a lot alluding to, there's a lot of sightings and things that are like, that looks like him. This guy looks like him. That gesture looks like him. So I think he's around. But it really is, it's the part of this movie that's required to be this way. This sort of like who's who, spy versus spy, because all the cabal does is all secretive, undercover, under wraps, because they're rats. They're afraid little, they're afraid cowards that they have to do everything under cover of darkness. So they always do things from a spy perspective. Totally. The only way to counter this sort of spy perspective is to also have infiltration with our own spies. But once we're done with this, once we're past the need of this, then it should be transparency for all. Anyone who goes around wearing a mask, parading as somebody else, that should be illegal. That should be unlawful. That's deceptive. So it's necessary right now, and I get that, and I wholeheartedly support these beautiful men who have done this. But eventually we'll get past the need for that, and I'm really looking forward to that, where everyone just is as they are. There's no question. You can take everyone at face value, everything that everybody says at face value, and there's no more lies, no more deception.
I'm pretty good friends with Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot. I know her for years. I've been following her. Some of the best interviews she's done is with Robert Dean, who was a sergeant major, and he's worked with extraterrestrials, et cetera. Some of the most fascinating UFO interviews of all time. Robert Dean, look him up. Older gentleman, white hair, ponytail. I never got to speak to him. Unfortunately, he passed on about 3 years ago. Nice guy. Lived down in, I believe it was Prescott, Arizona. And needless to say, Nino Rodriguez, who is going to be, I'm going to be on his show, actually. I thought he was going to be on mine, but it's actually the other way around, which is okay. Nino was interviewed by Carrie Cassidy about 2.5, 3 months ago. It was a video that wasn't on YouTube. It wasn't on Rumble. It wasn't on Nino's Corner. It was strictly, I believe it was on Carrie Cassidy's private channel. And I got access to it. And she had him convinced that JFK Jr. is 107. I mean, he goes, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "The next time I see him, I'm going to grab him by a headlock. I'm going to try to rip his mask off, all this stuff." The next day, Nino has a podcast, right? And doesn't say a word, not one single word. But he was convinced in this 1 hour interview that JFK Jr. is 107.
Like I said, I don't think it is all the time. I think it could have been at for particular times within where it was necessary just to like play that role, but I don't think it is consistently. Well, I mean, who knows? We'll see when it's all said and done. But
Jassara Nassara is very real, isn't it?
Absolutely. But one point I do want to draw on is, and this was actually mentioned by 107 in Makings of a Perfect Day. Mm-hmm. He kind of said he wished Bill Cooper didn't go down the extraterrestrial, the alien stuff. So to my knowledge, everything within that sort of alien agenda, extraterrestrial thing, it's all a facade designed to keep us away from this realization that we're here at the pinnacle, as the pinnacle of God's creation, here to do a very specific purpose. And nothing can affect that. So aliens would just throw that whole experience for a loop. So every aspect of aliens is just another recreation of the church's use of angels and demons to get people to do what to do. To say the demons are going to get you, they're going to come out and get you, all these sorts of things. You're going to go to hell if you do this, or don't worry about it. We're going to save you. The angels are going to save you. You don't actually have to do anything. Both of those lead to a space of complacency. So the whole alien narrative kind of fits that same vein of just, it leads us to complacency. It's not activating, it's not enlivening. So I just wanted to say that real quickly, just to throw on that.
Yeah. Can the United States sustain itself till 2024 while we wait for Mr. Trump to come back, or does it happen this year, or does it happen in the middle of next year? I don't think you can go to 2024. That's my personal opinion, and expect that, things are going to get pretty hectic.
No, it can't go that long. I don't think, because they're having to, it's a tightrope, right? They don't want it to get to the space to where good-hearted patriots who have a lot of guns are taking to the streets and taking ownership and taking matters into their own hands. They don't want a revolution of that sort, because that leads to a lot of bloodshed. It gets really messy at that point.
There's two sides to that story. What I think, Justin, is if the American people who are armed and trained, the ones that are trained, ex-military, ex-police officers, and they go directly after the head of the snake. In other words, we're not going to go and kill our neighbors because they have different political views. I'm not interested in that. I don't care what your political views are. I'm going after the people who are in charge.
Right. And like what happened in Sri Lanka, and if that happened everywhere, that would be beautiful. But my point with that was saying, if it gets bad enough to where riots start to happen and people are having to use guns to defend themselves, to defend their homes, that's not a good space to be in, because every aspect of this plan is designed to reduce casualties as much as possible.
Well, that's exactly correct. You hit the nail right on the head.
So but knowing that if they do it too soon, then the awakening doesn't work as well. It needs to be so intense. It needs to be so deeply ingrained, because we are so stubborn. So many people are so stubborn. I mean, we see it around. After all this, people are still wearing masks. People are still doing this kind of crazy stuff. So it has to be really intense. It has to get to that space all the way up into that point where violence is right around the corner, but it won't get into that space. So to me, it's got to be almost like where people are asking, oh man, should I really go out to the grocery store right now? Or should I just hunker down? Those kind of conversations need to be commonplace, so that intensity is right there, right on that edge, all the way up to the precipice, as the 17 letter always said. We have to be led to that space.
It's coming to the point where people have to decide, do I buy groceries for my family to eat, or do I buy gas so I can get to work tomorrow?
Yep. And so as far as like a time, I don't think it'll take longer than a year for this to all like really start to get kind of crazy. But as far as how long that crazy period lasts, I don't know, because it might have to, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. And that could take a minute, and if the 17th letter team, they're trying to align everything astrologically, because this is God's cause. This is what he gave to us, and this is what we should be in alignment with. So we just left Cancer, and we're moving into Leo. And then from that perspective, Cancer is the highest point. That's the summer solstice. That's the highest point. And then for the 6 months after that is actually the fall of man, all the way until Christmas. So symbolically, this is the fall of man for the 6 month period, because we're going from the height of summer through the fall and into winter. So this is what's known as the fall of man. And then December 21st happens, the shortest day of the year, December 21st, 22nd, 23rd. And then Christ comes out of the tomb, emerges, and which is different from how they told us that he was born on the date. And that's a whole nother.
The whole thing's been one big bullshit story, from grammar school to kindergarten to high school to college. It's one big bullshit. You ain't learning nothing. It's a waste of time. Everything's about to change. Everything you learned is not going to fit into the new world. Okay. It's going to be crazy. People are not going to be able to cope with what's coming. And the people that refuse to pay attention, refuse to come into the movie theater and watch the movie and start to pay attention, it blows my mind how you and I could see this clearly of what this is and what's coming, and somebody else can come. It's like, for example, I'll give you an example. We did that wonderful interview with Negative 48. I manually approved all the messages by hand. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of messages I approved manually. Mostly positive, 99% positive. And then some, oh, Mel, you interrupt too much. Wait a minute. thing were you watching? Well, I just approved 199 people that said it was the most amazing interview ever. And you say that everybody interrupts a little bit. I used to interrupt a lot. I used to be as bad as, Alex Jones. Alex Jones, I don't think anybody interrupts more than Alex Jones. Hey, but he's got 120 million people listening to him, right?
Well, and he was also called out by Q as or 17th letter as a paid show working for Israel. So
I think he was called upon, to be honest with you, brother. I think he was called upon to keep the enemy off balance. This is the art of war, and Trump is literally he has memorized the Trump. He has memorized the whole book. He knows it verbatim. Okay, I think he was infiltrated by the General Flynn's. They went in and they said to him, "Look, for God and country, you got to do us a favor. You got to paint, the narrative as like if the sky is falling, we're going to get into nuclear war. That's the narrative. We need to keep the enemy." I believe at some point, Alex Jones is going to come out and say, "I apologize, but I was called upon to do my job, and I did it to the best of my ability because I have an audience of 120 million people a week that listen to me. And I was told to do my job, and I did it to the best of my ability." And he will apologize to the Q movement, because I believe he's part of us. I really do.
And I'm very open to that possibility. I love the idea of there being deep cover agents. People who have had to sacrifice everything, because I know there have to be some. So I'm excited to learn how many of these were deep cover agents that look like they were bad, but really were doing the highest good. I had one compared the other day. Maybe Harvey Weinstein was a secret white hat. Maybe his whole role was to expose. We wouldn't have known anything about all of this without him and his case. So maybe he chose to be the fall guy to like let it all out. And maybe he did some bad things, but he's making up for it in some way or another. I don't know. But we shouldn't be so quick to judge anybody, because we don't really know until the curtains roll and we see the credits.
Yeah, I followed Alex Jones for 26, 27 years. The only problem I have with Alex Jones is only one. He tells you all the problems, but he doesn't have a solution. You know what I mean? That's the problem. And I've had that problem with him for 26 years. I love listening. He's very highly entertaining. He's incredibly intelligent. He's energetic. But where's the solution? There's no solution.
Right. And that's a big aspect, and an important thing to notice is people should always be guided towards a solution, not just the problem, because the problem just instills fear and doubt and despair, and we're here to be uplifted. I can acknowledge the problem, and we should acknowledge the problem, and that can piss me off, and I can be pissed off, but I've also got to talk about the solution. What are we going through? What are we here to do? And there's always something that we can do. There's always some call to action that we can give to everyone to say, hey, like, there's more we can do here. We can take care of this.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, I tell you, things are about to change drastically. I'm glad that you came and we had this conversation. I hope you come back again. And again, I'll remind you, if you can communicate with Suzanne, and if there's a way that you can get us to 107, we're not afraid to talk to anybody. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. I'm fearless. I will not get intimidated by a 107, or, I will interview Donald Trump if he wants to come to the show. I will fly into Mar-a-Lago at my expense, and I will go interview Donald Trump. Not a problem.
I love that consistency, and I love that, just commitment to it. And I tell my followers all the time, I don't care if I lost every single one of you. I don't care if you all turned on me and said I was doing something wrong, and if everyone, I would still be doing the same thing, and I'd be still sticking to it, because I know where I stand, and that's all that really matters.
You got trolls too? Is that what you're trying to tell me, Justin?
Well, I mean, anyone who enters the online space automatically paints a target on their back, but it comes with the territory.
They love to hate me, boy. I don't know. And I don't have as many, because they're giving up. They realize that it's a lost case. They realize I'm just going to keep charging forward, and I'm going to not pay too much mind to them, which I don't anymore. But boy, oh boy, did they come after me with everything they had. And they realize it's a lost battle. So they're just slowly but surely, I'm grinding them out one at a time, But Justin, it was an absolute pleasure. Please come again. Namaste. And let's talk real soon. Have Susanna give you my personal number. Anytime you want to talk, the best thing to do is always text me. I'd like to talk to you about this business opportunity. I'm going to leave the video down below with the chiropractor. You might want to look at that. If you got people that have pain who doesn't have pain these days and want to cure the pain, not cure the pain, but that, get rid of the pain naturally, this is definitely something not to discount.
Yeah, and do you mind if I do a quick plug as well? Just to
Sure,
kind of
absolutely.
Yeah.
Please.
So you can find me on Telegram at Justin Carpenter 33. That's my channel. Directly is at Justin Carpenter, all one word. And then I've got my website, justincarpenter.org. And so that's where I kind of put a lot of stuff. You can find some more contact information there. That's justincarpenter.org. Pretty easy to remember. I'm very easy to reach. I love contacting people. I love discussing all sorts of things. So if anyone has any questions or anything discussed here or just want to know further, feel free to reach out. I'm always available.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure, brother. Let's do it again. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.